Hello and welcome to the Sport for Business Daily. We are joined this morning by Clodagh Kilmurray, she's the CEO of Swan Leisure, and by Con McCluskey, the CEO of Ireland Active, representing the fitness sector. You're both very welcome to the show. Today, the publication of your pre-budget submission outlines a number of key elements that you're looking for from government to assist the sector. How is the sector at the moment? You know, you're charged with getting people fit and ready, but your sector itself has taken some body blows over the last 6 months. How is it going at the moment? If I can come to you first, Clodagh.
The sector has reported that there's a 60% drop in income, and that's due to the decreased footfall. So at the moment, you're only allowed 50 people indoors. So people have had to restrict the numbers. And now there's a lot of facilities at level 3. So they've also had to restrict different activities. You can't have group exercise, swimming lessons, basketball, badminton, soccer, things like that have had to be restricted as well. And there's a bit of a variance in the sector depending on if you're a dry facility or if you have a swimming pool. So many swimming pools haven't reopened at all and don't plan to. They've had to close. It's very expensive to keep a pool in operation. So many facilities found that during lockdown, they couldn't maintain it. You can't just switch off the light, lock the door and go and leave a swimming pool. A swimming pool has to be maintained, or else you'll come back to contaminated water, contaminated pipes. So a lot of pools haven't reopened and won't reopen again. I think there's been 20 so far, Con. Is that right, that have reported they haven't?
Yeah, I think between 20 and 30 pools, and I think every week we hear another report of particularly local authority pools being under pressure and needing subventions. So, I think as Clodagh says, since reopening, there's certainly initially there was that positivity. Facilities were working towards safety protocols, making sure the environment was safe for people to come back. I think there's a lot of positivity when people started back exercising. And then little by little, some restrictions have come in, and the level 3 restrictions have now knocked both consumer confidence and operators. It's more difficult for them to operate and to be financially viable.
It's easier to understand the difference between a wet and a dry facility in terms of a leisure sector as it is with a pub, but we've grown used to the idea of that. A lot of the pub owners and the restaurant owners they're holding out the ultimate card that this is going to mean the closure of their business unless the government can provide additional supports. Is that a real danger within the sector overall as well, Con?
I think it really is, yeah. I think a lot of businesses are just trying to make it to the end of this year, and really the impact will be felt in 2021. In the survey of our members, about a third said that they could make it for between 3 and 6 months based on reserves. And that's really coming towards an end now. So I think we'd expect over the next few months a lot of facilities to be challenged to be able to continue and be viable into 2021. So I think unless the budget addresses that, both in terms of subsidies, grants, tax reliefs, VAT rate reductions, I think the industry is going to be in a very difficult position coming into 2021. And I think like the investment from government is a small amount compared to the return you get in terms of physical, mental health, community and societal cohesion. So it certainly needs to be tackled by government in the budget.
You've made your budget submission and we're a little over 2 weeks away from those decisions being made now. What are the key elements that you as an organisation and as specific gyms and fitness and leisure facilities, what are you looking for from the government? Is there a set of specific asks which we can see we've got published elsewhere on the Sport for Business website, but which of those are the ones that really stand out to you in terms of if we could have just a number of these, which are the ones that really stand out?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, our budget submission has 10 points or 10 asks that we'd like to see implemented. And maybe if we kind of group them, there's tax reliefs, and there's two main tax reliefs, which I'll talk about in a minute. A VAT rate reduction to 5% for 2021, the continuation of grants for swimming pools and the restart grants for those businesses affected in levels 3, 4 and 5. And then also a number of the reliefs that have been in place in the July stimulus, the wage subsidy, and so on, that they continue to the end of 2021, because I think we can see that this isn't really a 6-month occurrence. It's probably going to go to the end of next year. So I think they're the main areas in terms of specifics around tax reliefs. One of our proposals is to extend the stay and spend scheme towards exercise programs and gym memberships, which we call the exercise and save scheme. So similar to the hospitality sector, that you could spend up to €625 and get a tax credit of €125 for the period of October to March next year. So that would be one simple relief, and just extending an existing relief.
It could almost extend what's being put out there at the moment to spend on beer and chips into leisure and exercise, which is going to be better for the system. Do you think would there be demand for that, Clodagh, or is there sufficient demand out there that a stimulus like that might actually be seen as unnecessary?
No, I think that what we've seen in our facility is that there are members who have come back. You're always going to have 10% of members who will be there no matter what. They'll be there if it's snowing, raining, thunder, anything. And we'll always have them, but we do need a stimulus to attract more people into it, to be using our businesses to make it viable. At the moment, most facilities are either running at a loss or just about breaking even because the football restrictions that are in place. But as we're getting into the winter months, I think that people who have been exercising outdoors that's not going to be practical, and they're going to look to move inside. So it would be great if we could have something that would attract them in.
And one of the ways in which the government has looked at it, there's a difference between the provision of loans or of grants. You've asked for restart grants to be made available for facilities. Is that important, that it's not just layering on additional debt onto operators who would find that maybe in the longer term that's actually going to be as big a problem for them as what they've suffered in the last 6 months?
Exactly. If we want long-term sustainability, we can't just put a bandage over it by giving people loans or loans extensions. And that is important. But if we really want to have long-term sustainability, it needs to be grants that don't have to be paid back. Okay.
You're asking for a reduction in the VAT rate as well, Con. It has come down temporarily in the overall context from 23 to 22. What number are you looking for?
I think along with other sectors, I think a reduction to 5% for 2021 would make sense. It would reduce the cost to the consumer and also provide that stimulus to the sector. So I think a 5% VAT rate for 2021 and then returning to 9% thereafter, assuming that, that it has the impact that we hope it will. And we saw that when it reduced to 9% in 2011, that participation in personal exercise doubled over the period from 2011 to the current day. So we saw in the recent Sports Monitor survey that personal exercise at 16% is by far the largest sport, with swimming at 9% being the next one. So I think overall half of all adult activity happens in a gym and a swimming pool. And really, if we want to get people exercising and fit and participating, we need to support that sector. And that's where we feel VAT rates and tax reliefs will help.
Okay, every sector has a story, from hotels and pubs to taxi drivers to big businesses to everybody. The government only has so much of a pot. What do you think is the sort of the key message that you'd like to get across to politicians on the doorsteps, in their clinics, in messages which gym members and operators can actually get to them over the next couple of weeks?
I think the key point is this has to be seen as an investment in physical activity, in mental health, physical health, communities and society. That it isn't seen as being, a subvention that an industry is just coming cap in hand looking for support. Government, I know in the programme for government, have spoken about wellness and well-being as being really important. And we feel for a small level of investment in the industry and in the sector, that they'll see huge returns in terms of the health and well-being of the nation.
And just finally to you, Clodagh, if we don't get a positive answer from government, how confident are you that the sector will be in whatever position it is by the end of next year? Do you think that it could be, 80% the size? Do you think that we will get through, or do you think it could be even worse?
Well, I think Con might have mentioned earlier that what operators have reported, there was a recent survey, and they reported that they can last 3 to 6 months. So that won't even get us into the start of next year. I know personally what we're budgeting for is where we feel that if we can get to April, that hopefully we'll be able to even break even next year.
Okay, well, they are difficult times, difficult decisions for government to make, but making them based on informed evidence, which is what you've provided in your pre-budget submission, is always going to help. So for the moment anyway, to Clodagh Kilmurray and to Con McCluskey representing the fitness and health sector, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.